What is going on, fellas? And welcome back to the channel, Foggy Plays. You already know that because you're here. Today is Sunday, so we are going to do another list thing. You already know that because you've clicked on the video. We're going to do the top 15 best MotoGP riders between 2000 and 2020. Well, when I say best, I mean my favourite, of course, but that's neither here nor there. So the first rider on the list for the last 2 decades is a current rider. It is Franco Morbidelli. He hasn't started that many races, 35 so far, but he has been on 2 separate manufacturers. He is going to be on he was meant to be on a factory Yamaha this year. Obviously, with the whole coronavirus situation, that hasn't happened for him. But I think he's a good shout for a high up position in most people's lists. He's good fun when he's on track. He's got a nice riding style. I think 15th place, Franco Morbidelli deserves it. The Petronas Yamaha, beautiful bike as well. And the Mark VDS bike, which he raced in 2018, also made my top 10 liveries list. So, of course, I'm going to pick him because he's been on a bike that I think was beautiful, and he's a fun rider to watch. So, number 15, Franco Morbidelli. Next on the list, number 14, is a personal favourite of mine. It is Anthony West. Was a bit of a wacky gentleman, I suppose you could say. The pinnacle of wet racers. When it rained, Ant West, regardless of what machine he was on, was probably going to put it near the front, and rarely crashed when he did. I think Anthony West was fantastic. 46 total starts in the MotoGP /500s. Spent more time in MotoGP than he did in 500s, but to be fair, he spent most of his career when he was in Grand Prix racing in 250s. The man was just fun to watch because he could be nowhere and then all of a sudden it would rain and he'd be leading the race. So I think just for pure random races, Ant West, major shout. Also raced for Kawasaki, huge fan of Kawasaki. So I was brought up in a household where it was Kawasaki or nothing, really. So I enjoyed watching Ant West bait around the place like a lunatic on MotoGP bikes. He didn't really do a whole lot with the Kawasaki, but he was quite good. So Ant West, just based purely on his personality. Maybe go read an article or two about Ant West. You'll see why he's a bit of a madman. But Ant West in the number 14 slot. So next on the list is 13th position, Alvaro Bautista. He has so far in this list the most podiums of everyone. He has 3 to his name. Don't think he's ever going to come back to Grand Prix racing, but 158 starts, raced for the likes of Suzuki, Honda, Aprilia and Ducati. He featured heavily on my liveries list because he raced for Aprilia, which was one of the bikes that I had on the list. I think he was... No, he wasn't racing for Aprilia that year, was he? I don't think so actually, but he raced for Rizla Suzuki. He raced for Gresini for quite a while with the Hondas. On a beautiful Ducati. Fantastic. Alvaro Bautista, what more can you say? The man is just the epitome of mediocrity, really, to be fair. 3 podiums in his entire career. He was better in the smaller classes, but if anyone said to me, you can have 3 podiums in MotoGP. Of course I'm going to take it. Without a doubt, I'm going to take 3 podiums. And have raced for some major manufacturers as well. Yeah, fantastic. I would have it all day long. Alvaro Bautista, great racer. Easily makes it onto this list. To be fair, I did have 30-something people on this list originally, and I had to cut it down to 15. And that's more difficult than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, Alvaro Bautista in the number 13 slot. So, number 12 now is an Australian who did enjoy injuring himself. It has to be said. He was one of the first to start sliding bikes. It is Gary McCoy. Watching Gary McCoy racing is just amazing. I got to see him in 2003 at Brno on Horsepower Hill, and oh my god, was he a lunatic going into the hairpin right at the end of the lap. He was fantastic on the 500s. He was probably more fun to watch on the 500s, but I never got to see them in person. He did have a few ill-advised moves in his career. I think the Ilmore GP, even though he only had 1 or 2 Grand Prix on it, didn't really go the way he wanted it to. To be fair, when he was racing for Harris Red Bull, that was probably Gary McCoy at his finest, when he was fighting for titles but breaking bones. The ultimate man of commitment. Just Gary McCoy went from 125s to 500s, had a fantastic career in Grand Prix, didn't win enough races, it has to be said. 3 wins only. Definitely deserved to win a lot more than just 3. But again, if somebody said to me 3 Grand Prix wins, I'll have it. Yeah, no bother, thanks. I'll have one easy. So number 12, Gary McCoy. So the next person on the list is a current rider. He is a current factory rider, and I think a lot of people would say they like him, I would assume. Well, I know, yeah, I think he's fantastic. It is Neeley Petrucci. Petrucci is just, ever since he started in MotoGP on that CRT Iota, whatever it was called, and had a season with ART Aprilia, he's been an ever-present. He was really unfortunate that people were talking about him getting the sack from Ducati factory team at the end of 2019 because he only won 1 race. That's a bit, you know, I think he deserves the factory ride. I wouldn't begrudge him staying with Ducati for another 5 or 10 years. I don't think he has 5 or 10 years left. Well, definitely doesn't have 10 years left in him, but then again, Rossi's in his 40s and he's still racing factory Yamahas. Not well, but still racing them. So, 137 starts in Grand Prix, 1 win, 9 podiums. It's not the worst you could get for a factory rider. There's been many factory riders who've performed not necessarily significantly worse, but they've not been as good while they've been at factory bikes. He spent a couple of seasons with Pramac, and those seasons were amazing as well. So, Neeley Petrucci, number 11. Right, we are now into the top 10 best MotoGP riders between 2000 and 2020. It is yet again another current MotoGP racer, and only in his 2nd season, so that may give you a bit of a hint. It is Fabio Quartararo. I don't think anybody can say they expected him to have the season he had last year. 7 podiums, 6 poles. The man was robbed of a victory on multiple occasions. I think it was hard to make this list when I decided to make it, because I knew Quartararo was going to be on the list. I just didn't know where I was going to put him. I feel he's slightly hard done by being down this low. But he didn't have much of a career leading up to MotoGP. So if you just take his time in MotoGP, one season, I don't think I could put him any higher than I have. That being said, there are some people higher up this list who should, on merit, should be higher, but they're not. And again, this is my top 15. But by all means, leave your comments down below. So far, who have I gotten wrong? But a lot of these are from growing up as well, watching Grand Prix racing. So some of these riders are purely based on memories that I have of how fantastic they were back in their heyday. So, as I said, number 10, Quartararo. So, up next on the list is, I think, a rider who is underappreciated for how well he's done in his, I would say, short career, but he's been in MotoGP for a lot longer than I thought when I was doing a little bit of research for this. He's been in Grand Prix racing, if you include 2020, for 9 years or 10 seasons. Honestly, did not think that it was that long. So I was a bit taken aback because I remember him in British Superbikes. But it is none other than Cal Crutchlow. With his 4 pole positions, 3 wins and 19 podiums, he has been a factory Ducati rider. For a short period of time, yes. But still, he has taken Tech 3 to many a podium. He's done quite well with Cecchinello's Honda for the period of time he's been there. He's quite a hard man as well. If you ever see any of the accidents he's ever had, some of them are massive, and he just gets up and walks away from them. I like to think I'm a bit of, I can take a bit of a beating when I crash a bike. I don't think I could get up as easily as Cal Crutchlow does. Just kind of walk it off like it's no big deal. He's a lunatic, but I think we can all safely say, Cal Crutchlow is the best kind of lunatic and definitely deserves to be on this list. 9th place for Cal Crutchlow it is. So the next person on this list is an interesting rider. I think everyone will agree he's a bit of a madman, and I think that's what most people like about him. I have no doubt that the majority of people watching this video will say, yeah, I'd have him on my list as well. He is a nutter, and I think I'm starting to see a bit of a theme in this list. A lot of the riders are a bit screwy. It is none other than Jack Miller. He has been ridiculous since he came into Grand Prix racing. More so since he came into MotoGP. He did have that one title in the 125s. And then decided, fuck it, I got on a MotoGP bike. I haven't been on a Moto 3 the season before. He's just fantastic to watch. He would have had a factory spec Ducati for the season, but unfortunately we haven't had 2020 yet. I'm going to say it every time. With no 2020, it's disappointing because I think he was on a really good run the last couple of seasons with the Pramac bike. A lot of people did say that he should have gotten Petrucci's ride this year. If you base it on this list, yes, he should have. I don't think he should have, though, to be fair. I think Jack Miller deserves a top bike, but maybe instead of Davi, not Petrucci. I wouldn't give up Petrucci. I love Petrucci too much. So, Jack Miller in this list at number 8. Right, number 7 is probably the most controversial decision I've made. I was going to put Noriega into this list. He didn't really have too much of a career in MotoGP in the 2000s, so I decided to leave him out. I did not, however, leave this rider out because this is one of my favourite riders. He is Swiss, if that helps, because there's not many Swiss riders that have raced in MotoGP. So, well, in the last 20 years anyway. I think the majority of people, having said Swiss, will already know that it is Tom Luthi. I have been a fan of Tom Luthi since, 2003? I think it was the year before he won his 125 title. I have absolutely loved watching Tom Luthi. I have shouted for him to win races constantly, just all the time. He was never on that competitive machinery. Every time he moved manufacturers, something happened and the bike he was going on was no longer competitive, or wasn't as competitive as it was the season before, which drove me insane because he was racing for Suter in Moto 2, and the year that everyone was talking about Tom Luthi was going to win the title, Calyx was the best bike and the Suter was god awful. And then he went up to MotoGP and didn't score a single point. So that's what you want. You know, you want your favourite rider to not score a single point all season in 18 races. I hope he gets another opportunity to race in MotoGP. I don't think he will. I think if he does leave Moto 2, it will not be to go back up to MotoGP. I think it may be for World Supersport, like a lot of the riders have been doing the last couple of years, jumping ship out of Moto 2 when they can't get into MotoGP, and either going to World Superbikes or World Supersport, like Randy Krummenacher. But Tom Luthi makes it into my list at number 7. I couldn't put him any higher than 7th, but he is one of my favourite Grand Prix racers of the last 20 years. I just wish he had a better time in the MotoGP. So, Tom Luthi, number 7. So, number 6 on the list is a rider who had a very interesting career leading up to MotoGP, where he went and won a 125 race when he really, really shouldn't have. Came close in Moto 2 to winning it a couple of times. Then came into MotoGP, had a rough time, but since leaving MotoGP, so he's no longer a GP rider, gives you a little bit of a hint, he's British, had a fantastic season in British Superbikes, and should be a factory Ducati rider in World Superbikes this year. It is none other than the Playboy Scott Redding. Without a doubt, Scott Redding is one of the most interesting riders to watch, listen to when he's talking, and follow on social media, because he is always doing something wacky, weird, crazy, insane. So whatever is going on, whatever Scott Redding is doing, you know it's going to be fun to hear about it, because he just does not give a flying fuck what is going on. He is out to have fun, and in the case of British Superbikes, he's going to have to struggle and then dominate it. So he obviously had trouble in his Grand Prix racing days. Did manage to get 2 podiums, which, you know, not on the most competitive machinery. It's not a terrible feat, having raced with Honda, Ducati and Aprilia. To be fair, I think he made it on the list 3 times, maybe 4. Because he raced for Gresini for 2 years, and then when Gresini moved to Aprilia, he went with them. Then he got sacked, which was not nice. You know, poor Scott Redding. But Scott Redding, number 6 on the list. Right, now we are into the top 5 of my picks. This rider is the only rider on this list that has won a world title. In fact, he won 2 of them on 2 different manufacturers. So, quite the rider. Retired fairly early in his career, that was one thing I wish we could have seen more of, was this rider. It is none other than Casey Stoner. Casey Stoner, 2 world titles in 115 MotoGP starts, 39 pole positions, 38 wins, 69 podiums. Very nice indeed. Winning 2 world titles, one for Honda, one for Ducati. What more can you say? Started his Grand Prix career racing for Cecchinello on a bike that had basically no sponsors, but actually looked really nice for it. Not quite good enough to make it into my top 10 of my livery list, but it was still quite a nice bike to look at. When he went to Ducati, it was just, that bike was insane. The Ducati he had was ridiculous. He did have some insane crashes during his career. I just wish he didn't retire at such a young age. I wish we had Stoner for another 5 or 6 years at least. Unfortunately, he's been out of MotoGP for 8 years now. Does the occasional test, but it's not the same. We want Casey Stoner back. Bring Casey Stoner back. I think we should start a petition to get Casey Stoner back into MotoGP so he can get his 3rd world title. Put him on something crazy and random. Throw him back on a Ducati. Stick him into Honda alongside Marc Marquez. Just throw him on an Aprilia. I reckon if he was given an Aprilia, he'd be ridiculously fast. So, I don't know. Casey Stoner, kind of wanted to put him higher, but there's 4 riders I prefer. So, he sits in 5th. So, 4th place now. Just missing out on the top 3, based more so on my personal preferences. This man was a 1-bike rider, spent his entire MotoGP and 500 career and World Superbike career racing for one manufacturer. It is none other than Norifume Abe, aka Norik Abe, who had 108 500cc starts, 17 podiums and 3 wins. The majority of his wins did come in Japan, but to be fair, a man taken far too soon was killed in a road traffic accident in Japan, which does put a little bit of a dampener on the episode, but you can't deny that he was amazing. Started in 500s in the 1994 season, did a couple of wildcard seasons, a couple of seasons where he did wildcards. Left MotoGP in 2004 after 36 MotoGP starts. So starting on the 990s, which were just insane bikes. They were ridiculous. The noise off them was amazing. But left MotoGP to go to World Superbikes, had a couple of quite good seasons in World Superbikes, it has to be said, before retiring back to Japan, and as I said, unfortunately losing his life, which obviously was far too soon. But Norik Abe, regardless, one of my favourite racers in the last 20 years for MotoGP. Goes without saying, the man was amazing. He was always smiling, such a happy rider. What more can you say? The hair sticking out from the back of his helmet. If you've never seen Norik Abe racing, YouTube, find a video watching Norik Abe racing. You could always see the locks of hair flowing out the back. He always had long hair. It was a staple of Norik Abe, and he is just fantastic. I wish he was still around, but unfortunately, the best of us are taken too soon. So that's Norik Abe at number 4. So number 3 on our list, in the bronze position, we have probably the oldest person in this list. Actually, he definitely would be the oldest in this list. Still a current bike racer, not MotoGP, but he does do the occasional road race. He is Irish, so obviously I'm going to put him in this list based purely on my bias, because I'm Irish. I like Irish bike racers. It is, of course, Jeremy McWilliams. The man is a 2-stroke legend. He was able to get a Proton KR so Kenny Roberts' piece of crap two-stroke, to pole position up against a bunch of 990s in Phillip Island. That in itself is insane. He had 118 total starts, 70 of those being in 500s, 48 in MotoGP. He started in 500s in 1993 on a Yamaha, which Yamaha weren't terrible, but they were also just after losing Wayne Rainey, or that season they lost Wayne Rainey because of an injury. But came out and rode a terrible Aprilia for 2004 when they had that cube engine that just never worked. And then went off and raced for Proton for 3 seasons, which again wasn't great. It just, it wasn't fantastic. He did have 2 podiums, one of them coming at Donington Park in the wet when he was fighting against Valentino Rossi and Kenny Roberts, which was a fantastic race to watch. I would definitely recommend going back and watching that. I've watched the highlights of that race so many times. I've watched the full race so many times. Donington Park, I wish the GP would go back to Donington Park. It throws up some fantastic races. They've made it so that it flows better, but I think when they had the old Foggy S's back in the day, it just made the track crazier. It was free flowing at the start, and then it suddenly turned into this tight, twisty hell. And I think everyone loved watching it. Riders probably didn't enjoy riding it, but that's neither here nor there. It's all about entertainment. So Jeremy McWilliams, for the fact that he's Irish, I've actually met him in person. I had a picture with him. I was 7, I think, in the picture. I don't actually have it, so I can't put any photo evidence of it. But I have met him. And I met him a couple of times actually. Last time I met him in Mondello Park at a track day 4 years ago. He was out testing for Bridgestone. But that's neither here nor there. So in third place, Jeremy McWilliams. So number 2 on this list is a rider that when I thought about making this list, he was the second name I put on the list. So obviously was the second one to come to mind. Therefore, had to be second rider in the list overall. He made a bit of an impression in the livery episode I did as well, where I talked about top 10 best liveries. It is none other than Sideshow Simoncelli. What a guy. He was, again, fantastic when he was racing. So very, very close to winning a race. Never actually did, unfortunately. Did win the 250s on a Gilera, which I absolutely adored. That bike was beautiful. Unfortunately, didn't get a chance in MotoGP because, as I'm sure everyone in this watching this video will know, Marco Simoncelli was taken far too soon in an accident during a race, which obviously is not something you want to see. But he still had quite a career. Only had 2 seasons in Grand Prix, or in the premier class in Grand Prix. But he is a racer that I followed for many, many years. I think going back to, again, it was about 2003, 2002, when he was racing for an Aprilia with Steve Yenker as his teammate, if I'm not mistaken. That's going back probably, that's probably going back to like 2002, 2003, maybe. I'll never forget him winning a race around Jerez in that 125. It was soaking, but oh my god, he was so fast. Even though he was the heaviest rider on the grid, never gave up. 2 podiums, 2 pole positions, just prove that Sideshow Simoncelli was a fearless bike racer, and just sad that he's also no longer with us. But I think he'd be happy with the career he had. Obviously, people were saying he was going to be the next world champion. I think he could have. If he was still with us, I think he would have won plenty of world titles. I think he would have pushed Marc Marquez much harder than a lot of the riders we have now, because there's not been a whole lot of top riders that have been able to push Marc Marquez on a regular basis. They've been people who've come in and done it occasionally, but nobody was... I think Simoncelli is just... It's the case of what could have been. But Marco, without a doubt, is top 2 on this list. He's only beat out by one rider purely because I've been a fan of this rider from as long as I can remember. The first rider who came to my mind when I thought of this list was the person who is number 1. So you're going to see that name in just a second. But Marco Simoncelli in at second position, getting silver in my list. And here we are, number 1 on the list, the greatest MotoGP racer never to win a MotoGP title. Yeah, that's what I'm going with. He is the greatest Grand Prix racer to never win a title. I would like everyone watching this to leave a comment down below. Who do you think it's going to be? Anybody who knows me already probably knows the answer, because he is one of my favourite bike racers. I have waxed lyrical about him for quite a while. I absolutely adored this man for so long. It is none other than, are you ready? Sete Gibernau. Oh my god, this man, in my eyes, can do no wrong. Rossi is an asshole for almost taking him out at Jerez in the final corner, which is now Lorenzo's corner. He didn't fully take him out, but he went up the inside when there was no space in 2004, maybe? I think it was 2004 when he was racing for Telefonica Movistar Honda. But Sete started 160 races in total, 76 of those in 500s, 84 in MotoGP. When he was racing in 500s for Honda, he was on the rather terrible V-twin 2-stroke that had a single-sided swing arm and was about 10 years old, and he was racing for Repsol. He was just kind of given that, and they said, there you go, what do you want us to do? So racing that for a couple of years, did finish 5th in the title one of those seasons. I think it might have been 99. And then Honda didn't do so well. But after that, he went to Suzuki, where he started racing with the Telefonica Movistar Suzuki at the time. Then swapped back to Honda after 2 seasons with the poisoned chalice that was Suzuki, which had been given up by Kenny Roberts Jr., who after him pretty much ruined Suzuki. They could not, for love nor money, do anything in Grand Prix racing. The seasons he had between 2003 and 2005 with the Telefonica Movistar Honda were quite possibly his best. He did get 9 wins in total, the majority of those coming in the between 2003 and 2005 seasons with Honda. A couple of them with Suzuki and one with Ducati, I think it was. But 30 podiums in 160 races. It's not a terrible hit rate. It's not Casey Stoner's hit rate, but still, it's not Marc Marquez either. But that's, neither here nor there. 13 pole positions. The man, I just think he was fantastic. I've always gotten shit for thinking he was a great player, great racer. Football Manager, come back, no mind. He's just a fantastic racer. He wasn't the most aggressive. He wasn't the most outspoken rider. I think just in general, overall, everything about him was fantastic. So, what do you think of my list? If you disagree, which I'm sure many people will, leave a comment down below. Who do you think should have been on this list that wasn't? I have plenty of people on a list written next to me that didn't actually make the list, such as Anthony Gobert, because he only had one season in Grand Prix racing. Max Biaggi. He was the hardest one to leave out, I think. Who else is Ardit Haga? Loris Caparossi was an interesting one that I thought. Ian One. Crazy Joe. Fantastic. Other than him, I don't think there's anybody in that list that anyone could really say deserves to get into this list more than anybody else. Maybe, I think the person that most people would think should not be on this list might be Luthi, or maybe Seth Ajuber. I don't think there's anyone on this list that you would look at and go, they shouldn't be there. I think this is my list after all, but leave a comment down below. Who would you put into this list that I didn't? If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe. The more likes I get, the more likely I am to make more of these videos. I am thinking of doing a World Superbikes version of these two videos in the next one on Sunday. But if you'd be interested, leave me know in the comments down below. Do you want to see something about World Superbikes? Do you want to see a particular MotoGP video? Do you want to see something BSB related? Because I watch a lot of BSB as well. If you want me to stop making these videos, leave a comment down below and tell me, hey, Foggy, piss off. And, okay, friend. My green screen's acting weird with this part of my sleeve. Okay. If you enjoyed, like I said, do leave a like, comment down below with all the things I asked you to comment about. What else do I need you to do? Subscribe, that'd be delightful. Hit the bell, because that lets you know when I release content on my channel. If you enjoyed it, then surely you'd want to see more of it. And thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!